Kaikene Fred Nwankwo Ezudo Eze Nwafosi Ajalebia Publisher African Lifestyle Magazine Chicago Nwafo Nde Chicago Chiejemba.
Hello everybody. Once again, this is Fred Nwankwo coming to you from our studios in Chicago with another edition of Bold Talk on Island TV. As usual, I'd like to start out by saying good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, depending on where you are around the world. Today, I am talking to Nigeria's bigots, especially Yoruba bigots. Now, let me make myself clear. I am not talking to Yorubas. I am talking to Yoruba bigots, which is a tiny percentage, but a very loud, tiny percentage. We know that the Yoruba moderates and the Yoruba progressives are very objective and very Nigeria-minded. We just want to address what people don't like addressing, because Nigerians don't like talking about facts that are bitter, because when you do, you're a tribalistic person. Call me tribalistic if you like, but I'm talking about tribalistic Yorubas. But before I start, I want you to take a good look at my t-shirt, my inner shirt. It's a statement that I'm making very boldly. No, I was not born in the USA, but my children are, and my 8 grandchildren are. It is a statement I am making on behalf of my children, my grandchildren, and your grandchildren who were born in the USA. And they hurt for Nigeria because they love Nigeria. And I challenge every one of you that it's time for you too to make a statement about Nigeria. Most of you talk about the inefficiencies of Nigeria, but most of you do that in closed doors, in small circles. But when it comes to boldly making a statement, so that we have it on record to say that Mr. Babatunde is against Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he said it on TV, or Mr. Okonkwo is against Bola Ahmed Tinubu, or against Soludo, or whoever, make your statement. Stop pretending that everything is good when everything is not good. Especially if you're 60 years old and over. What are you scared of? What legacy do you want to leave your children? The legacy of the guy who was hiding behind closed doors to criticize evil? Or the person who was killed because he stood up to fight for a country and fight for the right legacy that he wants to leave for future generations? Don't make my statement. This is my statement. But luckily, quite a few people bought this statement and they too are wearing it. You don't have to wear this. Make your own statement. Or create your own statement. I could help you. This is actually what I do for a living, or part of what I do for a living. And if you like how boldly I say the things I say, what's wrong with you inboxing me and say, let me have one of those shirts, or I don't like what that one says. Let me give you the words I want on mine, but I want you to print me something like that I could wear. That way you're reinforcing me and giving me the resources to get bolder, because we really want to take this thing internationally big. And there are other gadgets we need to buy. We want to be able to sit here and have you call us. It takes money. And if you believe in something, For God's sake, why don't you invest in it? Now to my point. Yes, now to my point. This episode is about putting to shame all those Yoruba bigots in Lagos who were very eager and very willing to lie, to sell the lies of Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Sanwo Olu and turn against Igbos. In some cases, literally, the fingers that feed them, not the fingers that fed them, the fingers that feed them as brothers and as neighbors. You turned against Igbos simply because you were promised nickels and dimes. You sold your Igbo brothers for rice and peanuts. And before I go any further, before I get misunderstood or misquoted, I am not talking about the overwhelming moderate and progressive Yorubas who have nothing to do with the betrayal of Igbos. I'm talking about that minority but loud, bigoted group. And why am I talking about them? Because I'm enjoying every second of the videos that I'm seeing where they are lamenting and crying and begging, Baba Tinubu, àti dìbò fún yín, a dìbò fún yín, ẹ sọ pé ká má dìbò fún ọmọ Ìgbò, a dìbò fún ọmọ Ìgbò, àti dìbò fún yín, àwọn ọmọ wa ò lọ skúlù mọ́, a lè ra nǹkan kan lọ́jà, nǹkan tá à ń rà fún 15,000 ti di 20,000. In Igbo they say, meh, nto, you haven't seen anything. You're going to see Shege, Etinya ya, under your friend, your crooked drug dealing, people using friend, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Etinya ya, read nothing. That's who this video is all about. And yes, I'm proudly laughing. Oh, àwọn ọmọ wa a gbé wọn lọ sí hospital, a lè sanwó hospital, àwọn èèyàn tí ń kú, rí nǹkan kan, ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ bẹ̀rẹ̀ ni. Obviously, when you're doing shows like this, it's easy to forget and overgeneralize, and I'm trying as much as I can not to. And that's why it's important that I mention that we know the daily Farotimis. We know the Rufai Osenis. We know the Pa Adebanjos. And on Channels TV, we know the Sheuns, we know the Maokbe Oguns, we know the Bode Georges, we know the Dele Momodus, we know the Yemi Adamolekuns. Yemi Adamolekun or any of these people I mentioned earlier are so objective in calling it. They don't call it for Igbos because they call out Igbos when Igbos are wrong. But it's a beautiful thing to watch them as progressive and moderate Yorubas in Nigeria, in the journalism field, in the news field. It's a thing of beauty to watch them come and sit down on TV or on radio or write in the newspapers and be very objective about what's going on in Nigeria and call out the bigoted Yorubas when it's time to call them out. There's nothing wrong with it. Just like I call out the bigoted Igbos, I call out Ojos Okalo and Chimaroke and Rochas and their phoniness, and even Governor Soludo in Anambra State, who to a large extent is doing a decent job, but is very phony in his two-faced dance over here type of thing. And that's why I'm also quick to doff my hat to people like Governor Alex Oti in Abia State, who is standing up like a true man, working for his people. Being an Igbo governor, that's what he is. He's not an Hausa governor, he's not a Fulani governor, he's not a Yoruba governor, he's an Igbo governor. The way he works for Igbos and defends Igbo interests is the way that Soludo should be, and every other Igbo governor out there that have been embarrassing us, two-timing and dancing around, dance over here with the Fulanis, dance over here with Tinubu, at the expense of your own people. But back to the people who this is about. This is about calling out the bigots, especially the Yoruba bigots in Lagos. And to every Yoruba person out there that is two-timing and playing those games, I don't play those games. You don't need to be my friend. I don't need to be your friend. And I'm very happy to work with you, knowing that you're not my friend. And when we're done working, I go, but don't laugh in front of me and patronize me in front of me, only to sneak back into your Yoruba circles and stab me in the back. It's shameful. Be a man, be objective. Live what you teach your children. All those Yorubas that were happy to vote for Tinubu because he's a Yoruba man and not because he has the tools to fix Nigeria. It's time to take what you have coming. And don't go out there shouting he's talking about Yorubas. He's not talking about Yorubas. He's talking about you, the bigot. Because while I'm talking about you, the bigot, I'm doffing my hat to the Yoruba progressives and Yoruba moderates. It's time for Igbos to relocate significant Igbo wealth to Igbo land. It may cost you 5 years, 10 years of money to get that done. But long term, you're doing it for future generation of Igbos so that they don't have to take this nonsense they are taking from Lagos under Tinubu and Sanwo Olu. Because bigoted Yorubas like to hide in the shadow of the crap they've been told that Igbos don't allow Yorubas to live in Igbo land. I want you to listen to this Yoruba woman because she tells a dual story. One is an open-minded Yoruba person that's willing to be friends with Nigerians from all over the place, but also she disproves the nonsense that bigoted Yorubas sell to Yorubas that Igbos don't allow Yorubas to live in Igbo land. Listen to this lady.
Hello, madam. How are you?
Hello, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
How are you?
I'm fine. I'm very, very fine.
All right.
Sir.
So, what's your name?
I'm Mrs. Idayat Wasiu.
Idayat Wasiu. So you are from where?
I'm from Oyo State.
Oyo State. Where did you grow up?
I grew up at Enugu now.
Enugu. You grew up at Enugu.
I'm a Chokunanu.
Okay. So you speak English, you speak Yoruba, you speak Igbo.
Yes.
Three powerful languages.
Yes.
All right. So Egbo Yoruba.
I'm a Yoruba dada now. Omo Yoruba ni mi now. Omo Odua gangan. Bẹ́ẹ̀ni.
So ibo le ba le se ko èdè Yoruba.
Èdè Yoruba. Mo bede Yoruba nle now. Omo Yoruba ni mi now. Mo bá yẹn nle ni.
Ṣé ní Ọ̀yọ́ yẹn náà? Let's so.
Ní Enugu náà láti sọ. Mo bá nle ni.
So amuru ní Enugu.
Amụrụ m n'Enugu, yes, mana abụ m nwa for Yoruba.
Okay. Ebe ahụ ka ị gụrụ akwụkwọ?
Ebe ahụ ka m gụrụ primary school, go secondary school.
Awesome. Ke mere iji wee hapu ala Igbo wee be ebe because na Lagos kind of.
Ihe nji wee hapụ ala Igbo bụ na mpa anyị nwụrụ. So I relocate there from Enugu. We natazia Ibadan.
Okay.
So that's why we relocate.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
O wa fi Igbo ka ị na-alụ.
Mba di mbo onye ala.
N'ezinụlọ unu. Ole ndị
Ada nne m anụgo onye Igbo. O so tada anụgo onye Igbo. So mụ abụ onye nke ịtọ. So mụ we decide ze ka nnu.
Ọ gị nwa decide to come party or something.
Ihe decide say mba na ada akọ akụkọ ahụ. Ada anụgo onye Igbo. O so tada anụgo onye Igbo. Na onye nkịta ma nnukwu onye Igbo. Ya ma nnọ nke ahụ wee mee. Yes.
But Igbo people did not like you when you were there.
They like me now, but my daddy did not
agree.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So somebody like Nnamdi Okonkwo they came.
Machine do mahanchani.
Hey, Chinedu that Chinedu for everybody is like Chinedu.
Machine do mahanchani le biar Okonkwo mo ka for mo keke.
They want to find Yoruba woman. With your tribal man. But oputere na ndị Igbo hụrụ ndị Yoruba.
Mba ndị Igbo na-anabata ọbịa ọfụma ndị Igbo enweghị nsogbu mana ndị Yoruba bịa asị na ndị Igbo na-ata anụ mmadụ ndị Igbo na-eme nka ndị Igbo ada ata anụ mmadụ onwe ha anụmanụ maka ọ bụ na ndị Igbo na-ata anụ mmadụ ha kara ịtaga anụ m since
okebe ebe ị nwere akara
na ahụrụ m ga-ama na mbụ nwafọ Yoruba
ṣẹgbọn ọmọ tó sẹsọ ọgọdẹ sọ Yorùbá kọgbọ.
Mo ní tó bá jẹ́ pé àwọn Igbo ń jẹrin èèyàn ní tó wọn bá ti jẹran mi tipẹ́tipẹ́ torí sẹ́bà ti rọ́jú mi sọ wọ́n á ti mọ̀ pé eléyìí o ọmọ Yorùbá lélẹ́yìí so nǹkan tó máa ṣó nìyẹn pé àwọn Igbo pé wọn kì í jẹrin èèyàn tí wọ́n fẹ́ fẹ́ràn èèyàn ṣe jàre.
Okay, so story ni gbogbo
kò sọ̀rọ̀ nù yẹn story ni gbogbo yẹn.
So lọ́rọ̀ kan Igbo like Igbo fẹ́ràn Yorùbá ṣé wọ́n tọ́jú nígbà tẹ́ wà ń bẹ̀.
Dáadáa ilé ibi tá à ń gbé ńgbà tá a wà ní Enugu state ẹ lè mọ̀ pé Yorùbá ni wá landlady wa báyìí tí anything bá ṣẹlẹ̀ báyìí ìyá yẹn ti máa dìde lẹ́nìbo ń bá o
àjọ ìpè
nwaanyị ahụ máa ń kwe
wọn ò ní gbà
nwaanyị ahụ enwe ikwe ma ndị ọzọ wọ́n dị sọ nwaanyị ahụ sef ọ sị gịnị mba ndị Igbo adịghị eme.
Okay, so a na-elekọta nwunye ha ndị
Igbo mana ka esi anụ nwaanyị na abịa na Naịjirịa niile Igbo kacha enete nwaanyị.
Ẹ̀sọ́ lédè Yorùbá kí n gbọ́. Ẹ̀sọ́ lédè Yorùbá kí n gbọ́.
Mo ní Igbo wọ́n mọ̀ tọ́jú obìnrin ju gbogbo àwọn kìíní yòókù.
Ṣé Yorùbá ni ilẹ̀ Yorùbá lẹ́wà?
Ọmọ Yorùbá ni mí.
Ẹ̀dẹ̀ kọ́là.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni inú Yorùbá Haúsá àti Igbo ló tọ́jú ìyàwó jù.
Madam.
Òótọ́ ni mo sọ fún yín ọwọ́ ọ̀nù ni Yorùbá wà. Ṣé ẹ rí àwọn nǹkan kan wà pé tí Igbo lè ṣe?
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni.
Igbo lè wẹ̀ fọ́mọ. Igbo lè lọ́jà lọ ra nǹkan ọbẹ̀ tí Yorùbá bá ṣe Yorùbá máa ní ẹ̀lẹ́ ní ó ti lórí ọkọ ẹ̀.
Ìgbà náà ó ṣẹ̀fọ́ fún jẹ.
Ó ṣẹ̀fọ́ fún kò dẹ̀ sí olùrànlọ́wọ́ la jẹ́ fúnra wọn ìyàwó àtọkọ. Bẹ́ẹ̀ni olùrànlọ́wọ́ la jẹ́.
Okay, ṣé èrò fà tó yẹ pé when Igbo man is and his wife and children are working, the man will carry the child and carry back again.
Ìfẹ́ ló wà ń bẹ̀.
Ìfẹ́ is love.
Ọlọ́run ló pa láṣẹ olùrànlọ́wọ́ la jọ jẹ́ fúnra wa. Ìyẹn ò ní mí ní rárá.
Báwo lọkùnrin máa ṣe máa gbé báàgì? Ìyàwó ti máa gbọ́ mọ́. Kí ni ìyàwó á gbé? Kí ni ìyàwó á gbé?
Fúnra wa. Olùrànlọ́wọ́ la jẹ́ fúnra wa. Ó lè ti rẹ̀ ìyàwó. So kọ́kọ́ ṣì ní stamina. So tọ́kọ́ bá help ìyàwó ẹ̀ kò sí nǹkan tó bad ń bẹ̀ náà. Kò sí nǹkan tó bad rárá.
So ẹ like oúnjẹ Igbo?
Mo like oúnjẹ Igbo bàjẹ́.
You like Igbo food?
Igbo ọmọ bẹ̀ẹ́ sí èdè Yorùbá rẹ̀.
Màdé kí ni gbogbo tó bá attack wa lé ní Nàìjíríà attack wa?
Àná bẹ́ẹ̀.
Ṣé ètè attack wa?
Ní ọbẹ̀.
Alọ́bẹ̀.
Igbo ní ọbẹ̀ ju Yorùbá lọ. Ya ọbẹ̀ wo la ní? Omi ọbẹ̀ àti ewédú àbí? Ṣó tán?
I like Yoruba food. I like Yoruba egusi soup. I like efo soup. I like Yoruba jollof rice. And a whole bunch of other things I've eaten in Yoruba. So yes, she's Yoruba. And she says she likes Igbo food more. No, this is not Yoruba bashing. I like Yoruba food. The main thing I wanted to show there is the fact that Yorubas live in the East. Yorubas are welcome in the East. However, we can't forget that since the war ended, the Nigerian government covertly has had a mission to minimize not just Igbo people, not just the effectiveness of Igbo people, because Igbos are very talented, don't get me wrong. Every segment of Nigeria is very talented. But Igbos do not take a second place to anybody in Nigeria. There's nothing to be apologetic about it. However, unfortunately, since the Civil War ended, the Nigerian government covertly or overtly, through a cabal, a cabal of Fulanis, not Fulani people, the cabal within Fulani land, and the Bola Ahmed Tinubu type cabal in Western Nigeria, the federal government has come into this silent, unspoken agreement to make sure that Eastern Nigeria does not get federal government resources, major federal government resources located in Igbo land. Because before the war, I lived in Lagos with my parents. There is not a single Igbo family in Lagos or Ibadan or Kaduna that will not jump at the opportunity to be relocated to Onitsha or Enugu or Owerri or Aba or even Abakaliki, that was a small place, or Port Harcourt. But since the war ended, all the resources that were there before the war that made Eastern Nigeria a competitive place to live have either been destroyed or destroyed in the war, or new ones have not been relocated there. And as a result, everything that's in the Igbo part of the country that will attract people to that region no longer existed. And being who they are, Igbos had to migrate to other parts of the country where these resources existed or exist to now make a living. But being who they are, when they come in, they are not doing it to hurt you, but they are good at what they do. So they come in and do it well and start being the ones who control that sector. And if you don't want them in your area, and you don't want them to leave and form their own country, then you should be part of lobbying the federal government to locate these resources in Igbo land. It's Nigerian resources. It's not Fulani resources or Yoruba resources or anybody else's resources. The resource belongs to all Nigerians. But because the people in these cabals, whether it's the Tinubu cabal in Yoruba land or the Fulani cabal in the north, are not the best qualified people in those regions to compete, the only way they can compete is to eliminate the opportunities for Igbos to participate in the Nigerian pie, and then use thugs to keep their fellow Yorubas and fellow Fulanis from participating. But because our country is such a tribalistic place, when Igbos try to fight for their right, they run back to their people to tell their people that Igbos are trying to take over. It's all a divide and conquer thing. And we have to stop this. While the ones who had common sense in Lagos, the educated, overwhelmingly educated, moderate, and progressive Yorubas, overwhelmingly rejected the drug dealer, the bigot, the king of bigots, the cheater. But these Yoruba bigots supported him, and now they are crying. Let me share some of their cries with you. It's embarrassing, but it's enjoyable. It's so fulfilling to watch them cry like babies and bigots that they are.
Wọ́n fáwọn tí ẹ dìbò fún láǹfààní láti máa sọ̀rọ̀.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni, wọ́n fún ọ̀tá àǹfààní tá dìbò fún wọn fún tí ibo kan wà tí wọ́n ra gàlọ́jà ní àṣà ní ṣe báwọn bọ̀dá yín ni ẹ̀yin ló kàn lóòótọ́ ó kàn wá.
Ọdún tí ń súnmọ́ tòsí ń sìn yìí.
Ẹjọ́ kan ṣàánú àmì ní kọ́mẹ́tì tí mo fẹ́ sọ ṣẹ́ lọ́rọ̀ oúnjẹ lórí àwọn ọmọ lórí àwa gan kọjọ kan ṣàánú oúnjẹ ọfíjẹ́ àǹjáàní jẹun mọ́ ni. Mo fẹ́ ra sẹ́mo tí mo rà last 4,000 naira ni mo ra 5 kg mo máa rà ń jẹta 5,500 naira. Kí ló dé? Ní tí mo mo ṣáà ń tọ́nu pé bàbá Tinubu ni mò ń sọ lórí ọ̀rọ̀ wọn torí ọ̀rọ̀ wọn níyà ọjà mo dìbò mọ́ ọ̀nà pálẹ̀ báyìí kí ló dé ṣé bí kò lè yẹ wà láyé ìdìbò fún wọn kó ṣàánú fún wa náà kó jọ kó ṣàánú fún wa kó wò wá ṣe o nǹkan yìí pọ̀ jẹ̀nu wa Ọlọ́run ni ò tí máa lù wá pọ́nkọ̀ọ̀kan o kó ṣàánú wa o kó jọ o Yorùbá ni wọn fọkàn tẹ̀ wọ́n ni o.
ojú òye náà ní ṣọ́ọ̀bù.
inú ojú òye náà lẹ wà yìí ibẹ̀ náà ní ṣọ́ọ̀bù wa ibi tá a wà yìí náà ní ṣọ́ọ̀bù wa wà ibi tá a wà yìí ní ṣọ́ọ̀bù wa wà kó ń ṣàánú àwa mẹ̀kúnnù kó ń ṣàánú kó tiẹ̀ máa rántí ní ìṣẹ́jú kan kó máa rántí wa àwa nìkan àwa many of people ló ti kú àwọn èèyàn ti kú olóyún ti kú ẹni tí olóyún ti kú ẹni tí òun jẹjẹ ti kú ọmọ kékeré ti kú àgbàlagbà ti kú ọ̀dọ́ ti kú kí ló dé lórí àìlówó ni ṣẹ́ni tí tọ́mọ ẹ̀ bá síìkì tí ó bá owó gbọ́mọ lọ tẹ́ bá jẹ́ general hospital sí bẹ́ẹ̀ owó kólẹ̀ wọn lè attend sí yín kí ni mí ní general hospital tẹ́ bá dé general tẹ́ bá owó kólẹ̀ wọn ní àtẹ́ǹdì sí yín ṣẹ́ni tó bá lówó general débi dé kó fẹ́ lówó private kò dáa.
tí o bá fẹ́ ra oúnjẹ bá mú 1,000 dání wọlé tẹ́lá ó bá jẹun àárọ̀ ó lè jẹ́ kó yó oúnjẹ 1,000 ọ̀tá láti rí káàkó 1,000 ẹ wo kó sì lọ ẹ bá pẹ́pọ̀ tí ó sì wo àlẹ́kùtà mọ́ wọn ọtí kà má dìbò fún wọn mọ́ kọ́ gbàgbé ẹ̀.
fọ́pọ̀ Nàìjíríà fọ́pọ̀ ẹ̀mẹ́fọ̀ mẹ́kúnnù kò fẹ́fọ̀ wà wàhálà yìí fi ń pa wá àwa lọ́kàn ọ̀pọ̀ ká má jẹun Ọlọ́run nìkan ló máa gbé wá níjà a lè máa kẹ́pẹ́.
àwọn onígbàmínáǹtà máa pariwo wa ojoojúmọ́ la máa ń sanwó wọlé ẹ jẹ́ ká rówó san bẹ́ẹ̀ bá dé bíbá àwọn ọmọ wo ìjà bẹ́ẹ̀ mi tẹ̀ ṣe wáyé opó ni mímì lọ́kọ wọ́n dá pípẹ́ wọn fara ni mí ni torí nígbà tí wọ́n sọ lánàá báyìí wọ́n ṣe ni mo ń tọ̀ sára ní dídóde ìnira ìpọ̀ jù kán ṣàánú wa tó wá ń ti ọjà àkójá báyìí owó sùn wọn gbogbo ẹ̀ wọn kò ṣiṣẹ́ kò sí.
ni wọn fẹ́fọ̀ wọn ni wá lára ni látijọ́ táláyé ti dá yan ti ọjà ọ̀dẹ̀ ní àwọn olókùn orí nǹkan kan ṣe ká máa fara ni wá ṣe fún wa kó tún yé ni wá lára ọmọ òṣè òjẹ ni wá èyí tún láti balẹ̀ lórí àwa lọ́kàn àwọn ọmọ máa padà ṣe báyìí fún wa ọkàn wa balẹ̀ lórí àwa lọ́kàn nítorí pé wọ́n jẹ́ Yorùbá a dẹ̀ dìbò fún èdè wa kò yẹ kán ṣe wá bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn.
ẹ̀rẹ́ nu wọn ìgbà tí Délé Fárótìmí ń sọ fún yín ìgbà tí Pa Adébánjọ ń sọ fún yín ìgbà tí Bọ̀dé George ń sọ fún yín ìgbà tí Yẹmí Adámọlẹ́kún ń sọ fún yín ìgbà tí Ṣeun ní Channels ń sọ fún yín ìgbà tí Rufai Òsèní ń sọ fún yín ẹ gbọ́ etí yín àyà ṣé Yorùbá lẹ fẹ́ ẹ fẹ́ competence ẹ jẹ́ Yorùbá ń sìn ẹ jẹ́ drug dealer ata drugs á fún yín lówó drugs. You don't like how I say it, right? Because I'm so raw. Well, listen to somebody who says the same thing I'm saying in a very smooth way. I don't care how you get it. I give it to you raw, or I bring in a Mayegun and he gives it to you even more raw. I'll bring you this lady, this very good lady, who will bring it to you in a very soothing way. But it doesn't matter how we say it, we're all saying the same thing.
And if you also look at the Nigerian political space, you would observe that it is dominated by lowlifes that masquerade as leaders and have nothing to bring to the table. And because the system is designed in such a way that it gives them the platform and impetus to be pure shenanigans, because it seems like they're always shifting ground and always shifting alliances. Yes, there are no permanent friends and enemies in politics, but the fundamental is, why are you in politics? Are you there to improve human conditions? If you're not improving human conditions, why are you there?
Yes, if you're not improving human conditions for everybody equitably, why the hell are you there? Why do the Tinubus of Nigeria and the Shetimas of Nigeria and the El Rufais of Nigeria, why are they so bent on distorting history and trying to take away what is innately Igbo. It is innately Igbo to achieve. It's innately Igbo to be a pioneer. But an Igbo doesn't stop anybody else from achieving or from being a pioneer. If I don't stop you from yours, why do you want to stop me from mine? The only thing I can say is your problem is jealousy and envy, or inability to compete. And if your ego is too big to settle for the fact that you may be envious, you may be jealous, or you may be unable to compete, then you shouldn't have any problem with what I'm saying if none of those things apply to you. Here is the Oni of Ife saying a few things that are very complimentary of Igbos. And I'm sure some bigoted Yorubas will not like him for saying this. Listen.
Time immemorial, before creation of humanity, it has been like that in terms of celebration of wealth. But to the glory of God, a particular race actually discovered it first. And the truth be told, the race that first discovered prosperity and wealth, and they really nurtured it, are the Igbo race. The Igbos first discovered it through their ancestral background, the lineage of Obatala, discovered the prosperity and wealth in terms of the divinity world. And that's the reason why today the race of Igbo people, they're very, very particular, and they have very good expertise when it comes to commerce. They are very distinct all over the world. There is no place in the world that you will go that you won't find an Igbo man. And the same goes with the Jews. There is this mistake that the world usually make. They make this mistake that the Igbos came from the Jews. No, it is the other way around. The truth be told, the first human race that existed was the Igbos before the Jews, and we were all living together at the center of tropical rainforest, which is the heart of the whole thing, the land of expansion. We were all living together as one big happy family before they started moving clockwise. They started moving towards the eastern part of the world, where they started settling. So the race of the Jews and the Igbos are very similar, but the Igbos are way older than the Jews. They are both commercially driven, they are both enterprise in nature, they are both driven by wealth, because that is their ancestral belief. That's the race they belong to. In Nigerian economy today and the entire black race, if you don't give honor to the Igbos in terms of commerce and trade, you are just deceiving yourself. So the truth be told, let us go back to our history, where we all came from. Ideally, the Igbos are supposed to join us to celebrate this festival, because it belongs to them and the entire human race and the Yoruba race. We are just the custodian, because at some point we were all living together here. So let us realize what connects us. What connects us is more important.
So you heard the Oni of Ife. The gist of what he's saying is that rather than emphasizing, well, first of all, that this festival they're having should be one that is celebrated with Igbos whenever it takes place. And that in doing so, it gives us an opportunity to celebrate the things that unite us as opposed to the things that divide us. But how can we celebrate the things that unite us when at the helm of power in our country we have a bigoted man surrounded by bigoted friends and cronies whose only interest it is to divide Nigerians and conquer Nigerians. He goes to Lagos, he divides and conquers. A majority of Lagosians do not support Tinubu and they do not support Sanwo Olu. But Sanwo Olu is the governor and Tinubu is the president, and they used thugs to impose themselves. It's time for progressive Yorubas and moderate Yorubas and progressive Fulanis and Hausas and Edos and Urobos and Ibibios and Igalas and thieves and Edomers. It's time to come together and stop fooling ourselves. The title of this show today sounded anti-Yoruba. If you've listened to this show from beginning to end, you see that it's not anti-Yoruba. It's anti-bigoted Yorubas. It's anti-divide and conquer Yorubas. But let me extend it as I conclude. It's also anti-divide and conquer Igbos, thieves, Fulanis, Hausas, Edos, all the divide and conquer people in our midst. The reason that I focus on the bigoted Yorubas today is that Lagos is an epicenter of Nigeria. And in fashion with what Igbos do, Igbos gravitate to epicenters. And over the last umpteen years, Igbos have made a living doing extremely well in the epicenter of Lagos. And while they live there, the progressive and moderate Yorubas have welcomed them and continue to welcome them and have continued to teach Igbos, and Igbos have continued to teach them, and they have been benefiting mutually from one another. However, you have the Tinubu segment of Yorubas whose only means of competing is to cheat. And knowing that they cannot compete with the progressive and moderate Yorubas in Lagos, and they cannot compete with the Igbos that do very well in Lagos historically, they have come up with this divide and conquer policy. And with their tools in government and the thugs on the pavements, they have now come up with a formula to connive and concoct lies and shut down Igbo stores, shut down Igbo businesses, stop Igbos from voting, and frustrate Igbos out of Lagos. And I say, Igbos, if you haven't learned your lessons, you are never going to learn your lessons. And what I preach now is not to disenfranchise the good sons and daughters of Yoruba who are moderate and progressive, but is to boldly and openly tell bigoted Yorubas that Igbos have had enough of you, and Igbos, if you're smart, while you're still living in Lagos, gradually start migrating your resources back to Igbo land. And when you're done migrating those resources and building Igbo land, when the time comes, there should be a mass exodus, voluntary mass exodus of Igbos out of Yoruba land. Let Tinubu and his fellow bigots eat an Igbo-less Lagos, and let's see what they achieve with it. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is Fred Nwankwo coming to you from our studios in Chicago with a very stern edition of Bold Talk on Allen TV. And until next time, good night and God bless.
This is a song for the new year and every day. I want you to sing it every day. It's a declaration. Búburú kan kò ní ṣubú lù mí. Àrùn kárùn kankan kò ní súnmọ́